So this is David here from Coin Republic. I am here with Steve Beauregard from GoCoin, a new startup venture in the Bitcoin space in Singapore.
That's right.
Welcome to Singapore, Steve.
Thanks, David.
How are you finding it so far?
I'm loving it. I'm having a great time down here, and I've been lucky to catch F1 weekend, and in addition to that, I just find it to be a great environment.
So GoCoin is a new startup in Singapore, and you're looking for venture funding. I know you have VC funding from LA, and you're also looking for VC funding in Singapore.
Yeah, that's correct. We're still at the seed round at this point, so we're not looking for a large sum of money, just sort of enough to get us through our launch and some initial rollouts.
Mm-hmm. So I think I probably skipped the important part. Is what is GoCoin?
Okay, yeah, there is that. So GoCoin is a payment gateway for Bitcoin and other emerging digital currencies, and we are starting with Bitcoin, of course, because that's where the most momentum is. But as others emerge, we will accept other coins as well. So we're really focused on e-commerce, merchants, and gaming platforms. Really, the two primary focuses.
Okay, and you've already lined up some customers. You're telling me for this.
Yep, we have a number of about a dozen in our early adopters program. We've closed out the early adopters program at this point, so we're not taking any more into our beta. But we should be open for business in October.
Okay, cool. So as far as setting up your presence here in Singapore, any difficulties? Anything you're really impressed with?
Well, yeah, it was a bit of a challenge, I have to say. I mean, one thing I learned is it's really best to apply for your employment pass and get down in here in country and start doing things on the ground. But the government is very efficient about getting that employment pass. Once we got into the application process, setting up the company really went smoothly. For an American in particular, banks were a little bit challenging, but we've navigated our way through that, and we're all set for operations.
How are you finding the community here as far as Bitcoin users?
It's interesting because the enthusiasts here are every bit as passionate as we found in the States. I mean, the States, of course, is by far the largest users of Bitcoin, but the people that here in country are just as informed as the folks in the U.S. and the ones that have sort of drank the Kool-Aid are very passionate about it. So it's great to find that community and sort of consistency across the ocean.
Would you say that there's any difference as far as, I know people that I met here are very technically oriented. Have you noticed any difference between, like, for example, there being more business people in the States, more tech people here, or is it about evenly distributed?
I'd say it's pretty evenly distributed. I'd say that some of the tech folks in the States are probably a little bit more savvy in terms of types of sites that they've worked on and diversity. That's just mostly sheer numbers. But I've talked to a number of technicians here, very, very capable people, and I have no hesitancy finding local people to hire here.
Okay, cool. So we're actually sitting at a cafe that accepts Bitcoin. Unfortunately, today the owner isn't here, so they don't have their wallet here available for us to pay with Bitcoin.
Right.
And this is something we were discussing, one of the current difficulties.
Yeah, it really just underscores the exact state of the market. As we discussed the other day, we're sort of in the internet days before the browser was built. So these tools are coming about, but the fact that the owner's not here and he has no way of accepting Bitcoin because it's on his phone, or the wallet's not here otherwise, that just shows we need to build more reliable tools and tools that can scale.
Yeah, I know we were discussing this. It's very similar to 1995 or 1997 on the internet,
right,
where you barely had browsers coming out, or there's starting to get some competition between browsers.
Yeah. So
very similar to that period of time.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. And as these tools do emerge, though, I think that the future is set. Yeah, it's a one-way street. I take the analogy of I've got my phone and I have my wallet. In 5 years, which one? If you had to pick one, which one are you going to have?
Yeah.
I'd say it's going to be your phone. I think your paper money, the days are numbered.
Yeah, and I know one of the things people talk about is security of the actual Bitcoin wallet, and the equivalent would be cash in your wallet. With the Bitcoin wallet, you can actually do a backup.
Right.
So you could back up your wallet. You can't do that with cash.
True.
So it's actually better than cash. A lot of people are scared about this whole idea of a digital wallet being lost.
Right.
And they really shouldn't be.
That's true. That's true. I mean, there's many ways to safeguard your Bitcoin that you can't do with cash. And that's one. You can also create offline keys that never touch the internet and send money to that address. and then everything's kept offline. So nobody can touch that money until they have that key that's privately stored.
So we talk about it being privately stored. It's not anonymous.
Right.
It's private, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's also important for people to know that there's no true anonymity to this. I mean, when you put cash into the system to buy Bitcoin, you're generally having to register with a site to do that.
That's correct. Yep.
And then at that point, the transactions are in the ledger.
Yeah. And then that point is just like cash moving around, but it can move around digitally as opposed to handed from person to person. It's just a much more efficient transport.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, I think that the government should be celebrating because they now have a public ledger of all these transactions where you can't tell when cash changes hands.
Yeah.
So even though today they can't, tell exactly who's tied to which address, you can't tell me that at some point in the future you're not going to be able to have some algorithms that surface that give you the ability to sort of connect the dots on things. So to me, it should be there.
I've actually seen some articles already where people have been able to connect those dots.
Right.
Where they wanted to see, was this person buying drugs or was this person doing whatever? And they were able to track it through the ledger to that address and through the money system to the person themselves, to their account.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating.
So actually we're sitting, as I said, in a cafe that accepts Bitcoin, and one of the great things about Bitcoin is you could load it up in Europe. You then fly over to Singapore, and you can then use it at the local cafe with no exchange fees at that point.
Right.
And it's completely portable. You don't have to worry about losing it along the way, about someone pickpocketing you in the street.
Yep.
As you said, you could lose the wallet, but if you have a proper backup of it, you can get it back.
I don't know if you remember the days of the American Express traveler checks, where you go into the American Express office and you painstakingly sign all of these things, and you go into you take your trip somewhere, and then you had to give that and sign that over. Just think about how far we've come now and the enabling technologies that are in front of us. So.
Well, not only that, but American Express made millions, if not billions, on that float period.
Right.
Between when you bought the traveler's checks and you actually spent it with Bitcoin, you own it.
Yep.
It's yours. So there's no float for the bank to profit on. So
it's the definition of disruptive technology.
Yeah, without a doubt.
It really is. So anyway, I know we all agree on Bitcoin and what it is. What it is. So we both have had the Kool-Aid here.
Yeah.
But I think what's really lacking at this point are the tools such that develop into this trust economy. As you see things like Airbnb becoming very successful, and you say why? It's because they've disrupted a hotel business. People can rent an apartment out, and to find out if they're a good person or the accommodations are what the person expected, suddenly they have a whole rating system. So I think those are the types of tools that are going to have to evolve, and that's part of what.
Right. You were telling me that you're going to be introducing like a Yelp system into your GoCoin system.
Yes, I think that's very critical in this developing economy because right now you've switched the power from the merchant over to to the merchant from the consumer.
Yeah.
There's no more chargeback. The consumer go, hey, I didn't get my whatever I ordered, and therefore reverse the charges on my credit card. So now we're going to have to trust that the systems will be able to reflect whether people are acting the way that they should and delivering the goods in a timely manner. So we have to give that power back to the consumer, and so I think that's part of the balance.
Okay, and as like the merchant payment gateway, you're going to have a big influence on that.
Right.
Okay.
So we feel that is the important part of the process. So once you transact, if you want to participate in rating the merchant, then you're going to have to identify who you are. So it's just part of what's going to come with it. So that will also help with the know your client or KYC requirements that are going to be inevitable. Yeah.
So we all have to live in the world of regulation and government compliance.
We all will have to, especially as this market matures, and it's going to happen. There's no two ways about it. I don't know if you saw what happened in Canada, where they are going to be running, I think they call it
Mintcoin.
Mintcoin, yeah. So that just shows you that the sovereign currencies are coming.
Yeah. So we should just explain, Mintcoin is like a governmental issued Bitcoin.
Right.
Except that it's going to be centralized by the government.
That is one of the different factors here. However, I think if you look forward 3-5 years, that's what's coming. I mean, I think that Bitcoin sort of set the pace for this, and it will probably emerge as its own thing. But I see governments certainly starting to use this as a replacement of paper cash. Number of reasons. Number one, it's a lot cheaper to produce, and it's a lot harder to counterfeit.
Yeah, it's impossible to counterfeit from what I understand.
So far.
I think also one of the things we had talked about earlier was you've actually done some mining in the past.
Yeah, we did actually do some mining early on. We were getting our legs under us. So we had done some on a sort of thrown together, pieced hardware together, put a high-end graphics card inside of there. But those days are done. So you can't mine at this.
So you've actually been through a lot of the different stages. You went to the mining stage. You bought stuff with Bitcoin, and now you're working on helping merchants accept Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So
I believe very, very strongly in focus in the business. Some of the competitors out there are trying to control every aspect of this, and I think that unless you really have the right people running each one of those, that some of them are apt to fail. And then what ends up happening is you then put all the resources into the one that's failing, and the ones that are maybe thriving don't get as much attention. So I think that's a distraction at this stage of what we're doing. So I sort of carved out the niche of where I see as a sweet spot. So, being a payment processor that's accepting this new type of currency, it's a different way of thinking. So, just by having those components there, as other coins start to evolve, we'll be positioned to accept.
So you think that other coins will be coming?
I think they're certainly coming. I don't know how many unregulated currencies that the market will be able to support.
Right.
But I certainly see a future of sovereign nations coming out with their coins as well.
And do you think that that's going to be tied to their fiat in some way, or is it going to be a whole new?
Oh no, it'll be absolutely tied to their fiat. So that way they can actually control it and leak more out when they need to. And
well, it'll be interesting as far as the exchanges as well, being able to convert Bitcoin to the sovereign coin.
Yeah.
And back and forth, and also being able to use Bitcoin in the shops as well as the sovereign coin. Make some interesting things.
Yeah, should be some interesting developments here.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Steve, for taking the time to speak to us.
Thanks, David. Cheers.